Now that we have heard why the international airport was proposed and is currently being built in Bulacan, we now hear about the potential impacts of its construction. And to share those with us, please allow me to introduce architect, urban planner, and environmental planner, and the chairman and principal urban planner of Concept Incorporated, Dr. Nathaniel or Dr. Dinky von Einsiedel. Makakalikasang araw po, Dr. Dinky.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'll have to, I'm out of town and not in my home base. And so I requested for tech assistance in managing my slides. Okay. 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 So again, next slide, please. Well, the previous speaker already introduced the project. So it's supposed to be a major undertaking. It promises a lot of benefits, but it has serious environmental, disaster risk reduction, sociocultural, food security, economic, legal, and governance concerns. Okay? The question that comes up is whether the risks of implementing the airport in Bulacan outweigh the cost. It is not the question of whether we need a new airport or not. We definitely need a new airport. The problem is its location. Okay? And let me elaborate. Next slide, please. Okay, this shows you the map. Okay, and it shows you the municipalities that surround the new Manila International Airport. Okay, so as the previous speaker already mentioned, it's in the municipality of Bulacan. It's 2,500 something hectares. It's located 35 kilometers north of Manila. It's located in the coastal area of Bulacan. Okay. It is also an unsolicited proposal from San Miguel Corporation, meaning that it is a response, it is neither a response to a government request nor part of a list of the government's priority projects. In other words, government never identified the airport to be in Bulacan. It was San Miguel that proposed it. Okay, next slide. Okay, these are just some of the details. It's 2,500 hectares. The airport complex itself is 1,068. There is a government center. There is a city complex also, which are real estate projects. Sino kaya ang makikinabang dito? Ano kayang klaseng housing ang itatayo dito? The government has granted San Miguel Corporation 50 years to operate and manage the project. Construction is supposed to be in 10 years' time, which started in 2020. The site is comprised mainly of fish ponds, and it's presently being filled up. And according to some reports, it's 90% completed. Okay, next slide. So what are the critical issues? Next. Number one, flooding. Now, if you take a look at this map, you will see that there are a lot of blue lines. All of these blue lines are creeks and rivers. And as you will see, the 2,500 airport site blocks a lot of it from draining out into Manila Bay. There are at least 3 river mouths that have been closed by the reclamation of the airport. The Wawang Dapdap Sitio May Kapol River, that's one. The May Capis Canal, that's number 2. And the May Capis Matilakin Rivers. And there are a lot of other tributaries to this. So this is what is causing the flooding in the surrounding areas of the airport. The airport itself will not flood because they're filling it up. It's the areas around it that will flood. Next slide, please. Now, given further information about flooding, you know, the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office as early as 2020. By the way, the previous speaker mentioned about the Provincial Development and Physical Framework Plan endorsing the project. That plan was adopted in 2024. The report of the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office was in 2020. It already warned that the airport project was bound to trigger coastal and inland flooding because of the number of flood-prone municipalities should the project push through. Okay, the PDRRMO identified three types of flooding: coastal flooding during high tide and storm surge. Number two, river flooding from upstream sources and floods due to ponding in flat areas. Now, the map on the right shows the 5-year flood risk map. You will see that the red areas, which are the high-risk areas, are relatively small. Okay, and much of the area in a 5-year scenario are low-risk areas. Next slide, please. The map on the left shows the 25-year flood risk map, and you will see the number of areas that are colored red has increased. The number of the orange areas has increased. And if you take a look at the map on the right, which is the 100-year flood, you will see that the red areas have further expanded, the orange areas have further expanded. Okay, next slide. Now, there's also the problem of earthquakes and liquefaction. According to a Senate, during the Senate hearing on the New Manila International Airport franchise in September of 2020, PVOX warned that the airport site is prone to strong ground shaking and liquefaction because of the West Valley Fault. The studies in 2000 and 2007 show that the West Valley segment of the fault, which crosses Bulacan, is capable of large-scale earthquakes and is ripe for movement with an estimated magnitude of 7.6. The picture below shows you what can happen to the roads leading to and outside of the airport should the earthquake hit. And as PVOX has warned, that big one, the big one earthquake, can happen anytime now. Next slide, please. Oh, by the way, before moving to this slide, can you imagine a plane landing on the Bulacan airport and then an earthquake hits and the runway cracks? What will happen? You know, when the plane hits a crevice created by the earthquake. It's a scary scenario. Okay, anyway, I'm using here the same picture that the previous speaker used of the mangrove. Interestingly, the rich mangrove ecosystem in the coastal waters of Bulacan houses 22 species of mangroves and diverse marine life. It is a natural buffer against storm surge, saltwater intrusion, and flooding. Now, again, the Bulacan CLUP, the municipality of Bulacan CLUP, dated 2010 to 2020, designated the entire May Capiz Wawang Dap coastal zone as a mangrove forest zone and foreshore protection zone. It extended the mangrove protection zone all the way to Wawang Dap River, institutionalizing a 10-kilometer foreshore belt known locally as Bulacan's Great Wall of Mangroves. This particular zoning regulation was anchored on the 2008 Supreme Court mandamus ordering all government agencies to clean, rehabilitate, and preserve Manila Bay, including the tributary rivers, estuaries, and mangrove ecosystems. Next slide, please. Now, related to the previous issue is that of biodiversity threats. The municipal ordinance of the municipality of Bulacan, 2023, number 384, adopted the zoning regulations for the year 2022 to 2032, designating about 60% of the town's coastlines as mangrove protection zone. Now, if you take a look at the map on the right, which is the general land use map of the municipality of Bulacan, you will see a very large area that's colored light blue. Okay? Now, if you look where the light blue coastal area is adjacent to Manila Bay, that darker blue line there is all a mangrove forest. And the airport sits on that, okay? And the airport reclamation has now wiped out a lot of that mangrove. Okay, next slide, please. So, additionally, in terms of biodiversity threats, according to DNR, there are migratory birds as far as coming from China, Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, go to Region 3, the wetland areas of Region 3, as a refuge during the winter. And they breed in these places, okay? There are some endangered species there. And the disturbance of the migration patterns due to the loss of breeding grounds would disrupt the flow of ecosystems altogether. Okay, the pollution brought about by the deforested mangroves, landfill from reclamation, and development of industrial zones will worsen the environmental conditions in the area, increase the risks of hazard, and reverse all efforts in rehabilitating and cleaning Manila Bay. Next slide, please. Now, there are also a number of socio-cultural implications. In 2019, the UP NIGS, or National Institute of Geological Sciences, highlighted the community in the new Manila International Airport in Barangay Taliptip as having successfully adopted and withstood natural disasters such as earthquakes, floods, and storm surges for more than 60 years living by the bay. The community was noted to have developed an effective local early warning system, practical preparations, timely evacuation, and resilient rebuilding of homes every time a typhoon hits them, resulting in a record of 0 casualties or major injuries. The community keeps on coming back in spite of the hazards that they face because of the benefits they gain from the environment. However, as the picture below, which is the reclamation of the new Manila International Airport, this threatens the existence of the community, which could otherwise be a model for resiliency to disasters and climate change in other parts of the Philippines. Next slide, please. Continuing with sociocultural implications, the New Manila International Airport has been reported to have used coercive consultation processes. And this comes from news items, people who have been interviewed. And according to estimates, nearly 3,000 people have been displaced, over half of whom have not received any compensation. Those who received money report being pressured to demolish their own houses in order to receive compensation, which they claim to be insufficient. There were some reports, by the way, which I did not include here, that mentioned that engineers of San Miguel were accompanied by people in uniforms, presumably military people. And they kind of pressured the people to accept the offer of compensation, even if they felt it was not enough. Now, this is causing a lot of problems with regard to the source of livelihood of a lot of these coastal communities. Next slide, please. Now, this picture shows you the extent of the reclamation that has been going on. Now, there was a report by Global Witness in 2025. Here it is. The engineers were escorted by armed military personnel in assessing the value of the properties to determine how much to pay the affected families, and that the military personnel pressured the residents to agree to what was being offered. They were not given a choice whether to stay or live in their homes. They were told to demolish their own houses or they don't get paid. That's an interesting strategy because government cannot demolish a house without having a relocation site. What San Miguel did was they told the people, the families, to demolish their own houses. Next slide, please. Now, of course, it has implications on food security and economic development. According to the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, Manila Bay is considered one of the major fishing grounds for sardines. Okay? Now, of course, with the airport reclamation project, that will drive away the species who depend on the marine environment for subsistence, leading to lower ecological and economic productivity. The whole province of Bulacan is dominated by agriculture, aquaculture, and agribusiness. Agricultural lands cover 37% of the province's total land, covering almost its western half. Now, the NAMIA is going to cover a lot of these areas and will destroy the farmlands, damage the crops, particularly rice and corn. Next slide. Continuing on food security and economic implications, the legislative franchise given to San Miguel has a 10-year tax exemption during the construction period. What this means is that the government will lose at least 22 billion pesos in taxes during that period of the project. Also, a number of planners suggest that the unaccounted cost of reclamation projects should be considered despite being excluded in the discussion, since most benefit analysis is not required in the environmental impact assessment. And this would include the cost of livelihood, of aid and social amelioration to affected families, the health impacts, the support for mental health of the affected people, and the loss of environmental resources. Next slide, please. Now, there's the legal and governance aspects. There is the writ of kalikasan that states that 61% or 1,521 hectares of the new Manila International Airport is either a permanent forest or under forest land classification based on NAMRIA information. It also states that fish ponds in mangrove areas are classified as forest lands, and a portion of the NAIA site is part of the Bulacan Fishing Reservation under Republic Act 4701. These findings mean that the land on which the airport is being constructed is public domain. Now, also, the Manila Bay Sustainable Development Master Plan, which was prepared by NEDA with the support of the Dutch government, is a guide developed for decision makers in evaluating projects and activities within and in areas affecting Manila Bay. This particular plan states that the rate of land subsidence and sea level rise in areas along Manila Bay could hamper any flood protection measure or develop projects and render it dysfunctional in the coming decades. What does that mean? By the time San Miguel finishes the 50-year period that is given to them to manage the airport, that site might already have suffered from liquefaction and is underwater in 50 years. Next slide, please. There are also constitutional provisions, legal frameworks, and laws on reclamation and environmental protection to protect Manila Bay and other critical habitats, which should be enough reason to prohibit or stop the new Manila International Airport from being implemented. We have the Constitution, Article 16, that enshrines the state to protect and advance the right of people to a balanced and healthy ecology. There is the Administrative Order number 16, expediting the rehabilitation and restoration of the coastal and marine resources of Manila Bay and creating the Manila Bay Task Force. The Section 2G sites that concern agencies and LGUs, including Bulacan, must undertake appropriate measures against businesses, persons, and establishments in violating environmental laws. Then there is this case, Francisco Chavez versus the Philippine Estates Authority and the Amari Coastal Bay Reclamation. This was in 2003, and one of its resolutions declared that submerged areas of Manila Bay remain inalienable natural resources of the public domain and outside the commerce of man, meaning the airport should not be there. Then there is also Republic Act number 9278, the Philippine Water Act, Section C, that prescribes that water quality management issues cannot be separated from concerns on water sources, ecological protection, water supply, and quality of life. It mandates the improvement and restoration of the marine life in Manila Bay in order to manage its fisheries and aquatic resources. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, next slide. Let me just go through some of the timelines here. In 2017, San Miguel submits an unsolicited proposal to build the airport in Bulacan. Contrary to an earlier study by JICA proposing to build the new airport in Sangli Point in Cavite, and which, by the way, the Philippine government at that time was already considering. In 2018, the NEDA board, chaired by President Duterte, approved the project in principle, and San Miguel started acquiring the land. In 2019, the Department of Transportation awards the project to San Miguel without a competitive bidding process, using the PPP unsolicited proposal track. And by that time, San Miguel started demolishing fish ponds and clearing the mangroves in barangays Taliptip and Bangbang. In 2020, when we had the COVID lockdown, reclamation work proceeded, and DENR issues the environmental clearance certificate despite of environmental cases that were filed against the airport project. DPWH, incidentally at this time, increases the Bulacan flood control budget by billions of pesos, which we have been hearing in more recent times of the corruption that has come up. Residents claimed that they were coerced into signing relocation deals during the lockdown. Then in 2021, the Build program of the government overrides science as UP scientists, Pag-asa hydrologists, and local environmental groups submit studies but were ignored. Next slide. Continuing in 2022, the new government, now under Bongbong Marcos, expresses full support of the project. Flooding begins to worsen in Bulacan, Ubandob, Bukawi, Marilao, Maykawayan, Balagtas, and Giginto. In 2023, Congress passes Republic Act, which was stated by the previous speaker, the Ecozone Law, creating the Bulacan Airport City Special Economic Holiday. What I did not include here is that in 2024, the Provincial Development and Physical Framework Plan was adopted supporting the airport, but it was only after the national government already said the project is a go. in spite of all the objections to it. In 2024, flooding reaches historic levels. From July to November, Bulacan experienced week-long floods, overtopping of dikes, collapsed riverbanks, impassable highways. Families in Barangay Taliptip and nearby areas reported floods reaching levels they never experienced before. But reclamation continues. So in 2025, which can be considered the breaking point, corruption exposes exposés in the national government collide with the long simmering anger with the new international airport and reclamation. People begin to ask, why did government ignore the JICA study and global best practice that the new airport should be in Sangli, in Cavite, and not in Bulacan? How did the environmental clearance certificate get issued despite scientific contradictions? Another question, who benefits from these ecozone incentives? And why did politics override environmental laws? Next slide. So the New Manila International Airport is a story that is not just about an airport. It is how technical studies were ignored, how wetlands and mangroves were sacrificed, how communities were coerced to sell out and relocate, how flood risks have multiplied, how political convenience trumped science, and how environmental damage was made irreversible for the sake of speed of construction. As the timeline has shown, the New Manila International Airport was not only built, it was forced. And now the entire towns surrounding it are paying the price. Next slide, please. In closing, I'd like to say that the New Manila International Airport is more than just an infrastructure project. It is a symbol of unchecked development, built on unstable ground at the expense of local communities and critical ecosystems. The environmental destruction, coercive displacement, and inadequate assessments surrounding the project paint a troubling picture of a development agenda that prioritizes profit over people. Next slide. So the government should conduct an independent inquiry into the environmental and human rights abuses linked with the airport project and mobilize relevant agencies to ensure a participatory process with local civil society organizations and affected communities. Next slide. So it should ensure, where applicable, that relevant actors, including companies, government officials, and agencies, are held accountable for any human rights and environmental violations. I believe this is my last slide. Thank you very much.
Wow, what can I say? Anyway, thank you, Dr. Dinky. Yes, so we've heard from him the very serious risks in various aspects regarding the construction of this airport, the the location where earthquake and liquefaction can happen, which can also cause a lot of flooding in the area. It can also affect biodiversity, increase risks that and destroy efforts that are being done to rehabilitate Manila Bay. There are also mentioned social cultural effects, food security and economic implications. It can affect the livelihood of the people in Bulacan, and also regarding the legal governance. Oh, these are really serious risks that I think should really be considered. So thank you once again, Dr. Dinky, for that eye-opening discussion.